Okay, I'm here today with Juan William Chávez, who is an artist and a cultural activist based in St. Louis, Missouri, United States. And Juan is the initiator of two projects which we have included in the Arte Útil archive. And I hope he would like to answer some questions today. So thank you, Juan, for being here with us. Could you please describe your project Northside Workshop and in particular what has been changed since it starts in 2010?
The Northside Workshop is a uh, arts community space located in Old North St. Louis. Um, our mission is to support community identified needs through experience shops. Um, our current program is multi-generational, but we're kind of known for our summer youth programs, in particular the Young Honey Crew. Um, I would say our work right now is focused around the urban ecosystem, with beekeeping being kind of the center point and inspiration for developing kind of all of our programs. Um, and so just to kind of give you an example, our first program that happens every year is called the Young Honey Crew. It's a 2-week program for young people, ranging from like 7th grade to like freshmen in high school. And it's basically an introduction to beekeeping, gardening, cooking, and art. There's a couple different like underlining themes, but the most important thing that's kind of emphasized is the concept of the hive and working together as a group and supporting each other as a group and learning as a group. Um, uh, to prepare for that program, in the beginning of the summer, we partner up with Mayor's Goodwill, and they have a summer youth. It's called the STL Job Youth, where we work with young adults ranging from 18 to like 23. It's a paid position, and they help us get the garden ready. They help us prepare the curriculum, and then they become teaching assistants in the workshops. And then a recent program that we just started is kind of like what we refer to as a workshop incubate, which is a senior women support group.
Mm-hmm.
And the first partner to be part of that program was called the Wise Women, which is a program of peace weaving wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically a senior women support group that supports health, mind, and body. So those are those are the basic 3 programs that we do. Um, but to answer the other question, what has happened and how it has changed is that it has took us some time to identify this program. And in the beginning years, maybe the first year and a half, we kind of worked with a variety of programmings in a variety of categories, and we slowly saw that we could have the most impact through kind of programming that focused on the urban ecosystem. So we didn't start right away doing that. Um, it kind of just was slowly developed.
Okay. And can you describe a little bit more how you create the program of activity and if the users or like the participant of your activities, you were saying before, some groups, how they are involved, if they are involved in the programmation?
Sure. Well, the beginning of the Northside Workshop, we worked with the local restoration group who already had done a lot of data collecting and a lot of got a lot of community input, and there were several categories that were high on the list, and that was art activities for young people, a space for seniors, uh, opportunity for jobs, and access to healthy, affordable food. So those were like the three things that were very high on the poll. And so a lot of our programs like address those things, over time. The first one we did address was children's activities. Then we added the job activities. Then we added the senior programming. And then, of course, the healthy food is that, we incorporated cooking in a garden program as well. Um, but a lot of so that kind of set the tone for some of the projects we do. The way we came up with the workshop Incubate was just through a conversation with one of our neighbors. She had an idea. She had a history of doing this particular program, the Wise Women, and she was asking me if I knew of any space that was available in other parts of the neighborhood. And we had a certain window of time where our workshop wasn't being utilized, and we thought that it would be a good space. So we kind of, through that conversation and the opportunity in our history, like a program was created. So two things, it's a combination of a lot of different things too, like data, surveys, but also like good old fashioned just talking to your neighbors and conversations of that lead to kind of problem solving.
Okay. Nice. And so that's good that you mentioned the Northside workshop already, a little bit how is it structured and also the program, because in the Arte Útil archive we have another project of yours, which is the Pruitt-Igoe Bee Sanctuary, which I would say that is more a proposal, right? But in a way I can see some aspects that are common to each project. So could you please describe a little bit how these two projects are related?
Well, I would say, let's see, how can I describe this? I look at my practice, you can look at my practice divided into two parts. You have the studio, and then you have the nonprofit. So the studio is how I use the studio in a way to think and develop, innovate, see potential, different environments around me, basically. So in short, I used my studio for like research and like scene and investigation. I have a strong interest in space, in particular in the urban environment, if it's built or natural. And so the Pruitt-Igoe Bee Sanctuary was like a big investigation in the history of place, the ecology of place, the archaeology of place, exploring a particular ecosystem. And what was interesting about the Pruitt-Igoe forest that led to this bee sanctuary project is that it was a forest in the city. It wasn't like a vacant lot. It was an actual forest that had, abundant of wildlife, but it also presented a unique opportunity that triggered interesting questions and investigations through art making, and those questions led to a kind of utilization of the land that, the Pruitt-Igoe site was, I think, 33 acres, so it's massive.
Yeah.
And so the Northside workshop, I did tons of research on that site, and the likelihood of it ever getting developed was pretty impossible. If it wasn't for politics, for environmental reasons, the land had so much toxins in it and stuff like that. So, I don't like if it ever went down to create a site, it would have taken tons and tons of resources. Um, so, but it was the investigation and exploring where I learned so much, and almost kind of prepared myself to do a small pilot project version of this, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
And so that's how like the Northside workshop and the Pruitt-Igoe kind of like came together, because the Northside workshop sits on an acre of land, you know, um, and and so it just seemed like it made sense. Plus, it kind of lined up with some of the proposal, lines up with what the information we were collecting in Old North. You know, like the proposal had education, it had food, it had jobs, it had a lot of these different things um, that kind of that were very similar to uh, the needs and the kind of activities people were interested in Old North.
Yeah, and I guess also the fact that these two projects, and also the fact that you are basically based in the city of St. Louis, is like this fact played a really an important part in defining the project, right? So how is important actually the city of St. Louis for both projects?
Well, I'm very interested in sustainability, and I think one way of sustaining a practice for me is to be connected and to explore like your environment and the longevity of that. And so St. Louis has kind of provided me a lot of the projects that like I respect. You know, the artists are kind of, you know, they travel and they do other things, but they always go back to this home base and continue to innovate where they kind of started. It's like a cycle. So people like Rick Lowe, like in Houston and Project Row House, you know, I think Rick is a really good example of just an artist that is located in one area but tends to innovate, has impacts in and outside of Houston. So for me, it was really like that. That's how I look at St. Louis. St. Louis is also, um, you know, is faced with many issues that America faces, especially in the Midwest or in mid-sized cities. And so for me, when I work in St. Louis, I think about St. Louis, but it's very easy for me to go somewhere else and see St. Louis in other places. And
Yeah.
people can see St. Louis in their hometown too. So in some ways, like I feel like I'm studying or practicing in a place that you know that is kind of on the forefront of like facing social like injustices and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
they're facing all the current problems, unemployment, you know, economic and racial divides. But then they also are facing opportunities for young people to innovate and be initiators, be activists, and so it's, you know, St. Louis is really, I mean, in some ways, like a lot of people ask about like studio, like where's your studio? And I always think St. Louis is really, I look at St. Louis as my studio,
Yeah.
and then within it, there's like these different places where I can go think and do programming. But you know, an average day, you know, like maybe once a week, I just find myself just driving around and like getting out of the car and just exploring neighborhoods and looking at things, and I constantly just get innovation. You know, like I try to like just observe and try to innovate what I've already been doing for like the past 5 years,
Yeah.
and conversations are part of that as well. So that's, I mean, that's how like important St. Louis is to the practice.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I was there that we visited many of your studios, right?
Right,
So
right.
I can confirm that. So then, do you think that is important? I mean, I guess so because you already said it a little bit, but Can you elaborate a little bit on how is important for you to consider art as a tool for political and social intervention?
Yeah. Um, art. I think art is like, I guess to use the bee and the bee analogy,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like it helps. Um, there's no one tool that's right. You can't attack a problem with one tool. So I think art is useful and helpful to address these things. Um, but it's also just one element,
Mm.
you know. And I think, um, like I guess let's go back to St. Louis, is that, it's not one particular artist that's doing this job. It's the collection of artists that are slowly just chiseling away at it from multiple angles. And that's from the painter who's just painting about the issues. That's to the art educator or teaching artist that's, doing programming, the filmmaker, the curator, like all these people are just wrapping their energy around addressing these things. So yeah, and it's what we know, like other people in other fields, they do it differently. Lawyers
Yeah.
attack issues in different ways. So this is just my tool. And yeah, I mean, I think art has the art experience itself has potential for self-realization, a sense of belonging, a sense of connecting, a sense of being part of a collective, and putting like significant meaning to action, and that could be art,
Mm-hmm.
or art could lead to action. So I definitely think that the art is a great tool.
Yeah, I think so too. That's why we are here having this conversation, I guess. So I just wanted to ask you the last question, which is about funding. So
Mhm.
how do you fund your the project, the Northside workshop?
Well, I mean, definitely the Northside Workshop is a passion project.
Mm.
So funding is always, uh, we're always on the hunt for funding.
Mm-hmm.
We're always trying to figure out ways uh, that are not so traditional when it comes to nonprofits. I mean, so we do annual like fundraisers. We think about, you know, uh, you know, doing fundraisers surrounded like the honey that we make.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then we also think about, how can us as Northside Workshop um, be hired to do workshops in other places or in other institutions. So sometimes we get hired to do as a visiting workshop in other places. Um, and also, what I'm hoping the future of fundraising could be for us is uh, that we could also be hired to do projects in other places. So like
Mm-hmm.
every project we do supports the efforts that we do back in St. Louis. So funding is just kind of like an ongoing thing. There's good years and there's bad years.
Yeah.
Uh, but I mean, I think that's just kind of the challenge. In particular, when I think about the nonprofit like structure, there's things I like about it, and then there's things that I'm always trying to integrate into a creative process. Which I think we're getting kind of closer to that. Every year, it seems that we're finding a better balance between the creative art aspect of what we do, which gives us so much energy, and then balancing it with the art admin,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which you know, it's just kind of like it just we have to do it. I don't know if it really gives us that much energy,
Yeah.
but sometimes when we can find creative ways of doing it, then it's like a really good situation. I
Yeah.
mean, yes, there's always going to be a grant deadline and stuff like,
Yeah, of course.
you
Story
know,
of our
that's
life.
of the beast. Um, but I don't know. I constantly think about, you know, uh, creative strategies to fundraisers and how they can just be incorporated into the natural momentum
Yeah.
of work and distributing the mission of the Northside Workshop. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question, but
Yeah, it answered
okay.
perfectly. I mean, I think, yeah, we are always trying to figure out way for sustainability of our project. I mean, also us with the Associación de Arte Útil, we are always trying to find a way how to make our practice sustainable. How can we really, emancipate usership around the projects or the information that we have been producing. So I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Juan, would you like to, add something else about the projects or?
No, I think we covered everything. I mean, I'm feeling pretty good. I think we kind of touched all of our bases, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, I feel good too. Okay, so thank you so much for having the possibility to interview you, and good luck with your projects then, and see you soon,
Thank
I
you.
guess.
Yeah, it was super fun. Thanks for talking.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.